Thank you, Gail. And I have to say, that is one of the most fun times we've ever had singing together. Let's give a big whoop for that. Good morning, beloved ones. Oh, I just love that word beloved. It makes my heart sing. Today we're talking about renewing the mind and awakening to limitless possibility. And we're going to go on a journey together today. So anybody here feel stressed in their life ever? Show of hands. Anybody here feel like in the last 90 days things have been a little bit more stressful than usual? Yeah. Okay. I've been feeling it too. When I get stressed, I like to watch shows or documentaries of people doing really amazing things. Things that just speak to the limitless possibility of our world. And some people speak to what those things might be. Like, what are those things that humans do that just make your imagination soar? Anything? Like what? Mount Everest. They climb Mount Everest. Okay, so last year during this time I was watching Everest shows nonstop. What else do people do? Cooking shows, yeah.
There's a blue song on Netflix, How to Live to be 100.
Yeah, people live past 100. Absolutely. In fact, we have a number of people in the room that are over 80 and they have lived full lives. They make me look like an introverted hermit or something. So the one that we're going to talk about today is going into space. Because to me, when I think about going into space, that is the epitome of limitless possibilities. Okay? So today we're going into space together. And this journey of going into space, whatever that means to you, is going to be an inward journey, not one of time and space. And we're going to look at it from a sacred spiritual place. Because space, this idea of space, can really be transformative. It really allows our mind to think outside the box. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do, is to think today, what box have we been living in? And how do we get outside of that box? So Ernest Holmes once said, man's thought is creative and he can use it. Okay? So man's thought is creative and we can use it. We can use it to create our reality, to step into these limitless possibilities. So our mind is just not a container of memories, although memories are beautiful and sweet. And our mind is not just a problem-solving machine, although that's amazing too. Anybody excited to have a problem-solving machine inside their brain? Yeah, me too. But it is also this place where we can think about the creation of our lives and what we want our lives to look like. So before we launch into this new limitless possibility, we have to declutter the cockpit, right? I mean, we have a spaceship. If we think about ourselves as a spaceship, we have to declutter the cockpit of our mind. We have to get real with ourselves about what we're thinking about right now. So my question to all of you is, what story have you been telling yourself about your life up to this point? And Kim, you picked the perfect, we didn't talk about it actually, you picked the perfect meditation for us today. But I want you to think about, just take a moment, it might be helpful to close your eyes. What is that story that you've been telling yourself about your life? Okay. Is the story one of hope and faith and trust? Or is it one of defeat or difficulty? Is it one of limitation? Is it one of liberation and freedom? Does this narrative of your story of your life speak to the expectations of others? Or does it speak to your truth? Does it echo somebody else's definition of success? Or what you see as success? When you hear the narration of your life, do you hear somebody else's voice telling you what that should be? Or do you hear your own? So I want you to open your eyes again. Now, a lot of us have done work on this. Anybody worked on creating the life you want? Show of hands. Yeah, most of us in this room have worked on it and worked on it a lot. But there are still parts of our stories that don't quite align, right? That we fall back into, especially when we're experiencing stress. We fall back into those past narratives, but we get the chance to change them. So one of my favorite books is The Power of Story by Cslwh. He's a performance psychologist, and he said, the story you believe in and the experience you share with yourself sooner or later will become your reality, right? Sooner or later it becomes our reality, because when we look at that story in our head over and over, our brain says yes. Our brain believes it. So some of us are living out inherited scripts, right? Maybe an adult in our lives at some point said, this is what success looks like. This is what you need to do in your life. And we took that on. Others are maybe working through survival thoughts. Maybe there was some trauma that happened. But so many of us are reciting stories in our mind that come up to us that are filled with a negative lens view of what happened, right? Maybe we look back and we look at circumstances and we see it through a negative lens. And we act as though this is our truth. But guess what? We get to be the author of the story. How do you guys feel about that? That we get to be the author of the story, that we can change these stories. What do you guys think? Awesome. So just because the story is familiar doesn't mean that it is true for us or is true for what we want now. So we can ask ourselves, what story have I been telling myself that I'm ready to change? So I want you to take a moment, so we're going to go through a changing process with it, and think about, is there a story that you would like to see played out differently? That you would like to have a different goal or a different outcome for yourself than the one that you're experiencing now? And now I want you to turn to your neighbor, because when we get real and share with each other, it becomes so much more powerful. So I want you to turn to your neighbor and share what story you're ready to change. Go ahead.
It just keeps saying that, either this will become inspired. It's interesting to watch how the words we say.
If you haven't switched to the next person, go ahead and switch to the other person. Okay. Okay, let's come back together. Let's come back together. Thank you guys. Would anybody like to briefly, in 30 seconds or less, share the story you're excited to change in your life? Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
So it's the same struggle that I've been fighting my whole life, and that's to get rid of the culture I was raised in, suburban white 1950s culture, without getting rid of all the people, without getting rid of everything. Some people like that at the start, but it's still, as you were talking, all the trauma in my brain right now is the trauma of a part of me that still thinks that way, and everything else is fabulous. I love my life.
Yeah, there's always something to work on, even for somebody who's been doing it for so long. Thanks for sharing, Carol. How about you, Gail?
I really to work on rescuing people, grandchildren, greats, I don't need insurance agencies, and I was people, all the time, people. And I took it on, not just as a, it was, I listened to them, and I realized that I was able, but I was there for all of it. And I'm tired.
Yeah,
I'm really tired.
you're ready to care for yourself.
You're right, because I never took care of me.
Yeah,
I never did.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Let's give them a big woohoo for sharing. So Jim Lauer says your thoughts are your present state, and when you change them, you'll have a new story to tell. So you're probably asking, well, what's that first step in the change process? Okay, so we've gotten the cockpit a little bit better organized. We know what's going on now. Okay, so now we have to start flipping on some buttons to get our spaceship going. So we're going to space. That first step is gratitude. What? You want me to be grateful for the story that I've been hanging on to for the past 40 years or however long it's been? You want me to be grateful for this thing that I feel like doesn't serve me anymore, that maybe got me into a little bit of trouble or didn't make me feel positive in the past? Yeah, I do. And the reason is because, believe it or not, it has served you up to this point or it wouldn't have been there. It has served you up to this point or it wouldn't have been there. Okay, it's just like when we decide that we want to hang pictures for the first time and the only thing we have is a hammer and a nail and we're like, we're gonna hang some pictures. But then eventually we get a picture that's so heavy that a hammer and a nail becomes a not good tool. And we need a screw and an electric screwdriver, right? Guess what? We're still grateful we have a hammer and nail, even though it's not gonna work now. So I wanna lead you through this process of being grateful. So you're welcome to close your eyes if that feels good to you. You don't have to. You can keep your eyes open if that feels good to you. I want you to imagine being grateful for your past self. And it could be a past self that was 30 seconds ago, a minute ago, a month ago, a week ago, a year ago. It might be helpful to imagine them sitting across from you. And I want you to be grateful for who you were in the last minute, in the last week, in the last month, in the last year, in the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Be grateful that you are doing your best and you are still doing your best. Be grateful for the fears that you've had up to this point that have maybe colored that story, because they were trying to protect you. Be grateful for the missteps or things that you might call mistakes that have happened up to this point, because guess what? They were opportunities to learn every step of the way. Be grateful for any of those things that you might find as indulgences, or maybe your human brain have labeled them as imperfections. Because guess what? You are perfect. in soul and being, you are a perfect expression of God on this planet. And be grateful for being human, for being a human expression on this planet. No matter what that looks like up to this point, because it has gotten you to this moment. Be grateful for the story that you've told in the past that you're ready to let go of, because it served you. And as you finish this gratitude process, I invite you, if it feels comfortable for you, to feel acceptance for that past self, for that past story. And then release it. Now, you may only release it in this moment. It might come back. You may need to release it again. This is not always a one-step process. But in this moment, feel as though you can let it go, if that is possible for you. And I invite you to open your eyes back up. We often treat gratitude as a polite reaction. Thank you so much. And the truth is that gratitude is a deeply, deeply spiritual process. It is one of the most sacred acts of presence and love that we can offer to others and that we can offer to ourselves. When we are grateful, we acknowledge that life is more than one moment. I'm going to say that again. Life is more than one moment. We do not have to be imprisoned by a moment in our life that plays over and over in our mind. It is more than one choice. It is more than one misstep. It is more than one, whatever we would quantify as a mistake. Life is more than that. It is much, much more than that. When we say, I choose freedom, I choose love, I choose to celebrate all that I am and all that I've been, you know what the universe says back to us? Yes. Because that's the only answer the universe ever has. So accepting all that we have been up to now and releasing what no longer serves us allows us to move through that transition process without judgment, shame, or blame for whatever story we have. Because there is no judgment, shame, or blame for that past story. So who here is ready to get the rockets going to create a new story? Oh, come on, we can do better than that, people. Who here is ready to get the rockets to create a story? Okay, here we go. So Ernest Holmes says, there is a powerful good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. The Bible says, be ye transformed by renewing your mind. And this is not just theology, this is metaphysics. All of the great prophets that we see in the world, or great thinkers, or thought leaders, or mystics, or whatever you want to call them that feels good to you, they all come to the same truth, that we can interact with the universe in order to create the life that we want. The universe does not judge your story, it simply responds to it. So if we say, I'm always struggling, the universe says yes. Yep. And if we say, I awaken to the limitless joy and peace and abundance in my world, guess what? The universe says yes to that too. So we get to choose what we put into our thoughts and into our words. Your mind is a sacred ground for renewal. So I want you to think about, what do you want your story to be today for your life? What do you want your story to be today? And it can be as simple as, I'm a walking expression of love. It could be, I care for myself deeply. It could be, I choose my own culture. I create my own culture. It could be that I'm abundant. It could be any of those things. What are you ready to create in order to feel that healing that I can only imagine happens to astronauts as they're shooting off into space? Imagine shooting off into space, and you get out there, all you see is this wondrous amount of stars around you. What do you want your story to be that would feel like that? Take a moment, and I'd like you to share with the people around you. Yes, Pam.
I just wanted to include in that story was the astronaut that came home sunny. Her reception to her 2 dogs was so wonderful. Well, it got stick and product to her leg.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about, what do you want your new story to be, and share with your neighbor? Go ahead. If you haven't switched to the next person, go ahead. Let's come back together. Anybody want to share what they want their upcoming story to be? Go ahead.
You kind of gave us 2 choices: telling the story that we've been telling ourselves all along, or telling ourselves a new story. Years ago, I had come to this place of feeling like I wanted to know what the truth is. And the soft voice in my head said, if you want to know the truth, lay down and be still. I fought with that voice because I was trying to graduate from college and I needed to finish it up. And I fought with that voice saying, no, I really want to know what the truth is. And the voice started to laugh and said, do you realize that as long as you keep telling yourself the story, you will only know the story you're telling yourself, no matter how you change it. If you want to know the truth, be still. And in the stillness, life is far beyond all thoughts in the head. So I chose no choices of this way or that way, one way or the other, and learn to see this place that we are. So that was my choice.
Thank you. Let's give Rich a room for that. Would anybody else like to share what they'd like to choose for themselves? Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
So I think I've mentioned a number of times that I'm working through the stuff in my house. And so the other night I got into bed, middle of the night, I heard the night market again. And then, but it was louder, and I woke up. And then I heard, like, you know how when there's going to be the wood in your house goes creak, creak, creak. So I heard that, and I'm like, oh, well, it's just the wind. And then I heard, and I didn't bring it with me, a crunkling, you know, the pop things you put in a box to build a house. I heard that loud and clear. That by this time I was like, loud and clear. And I was really frightened. Was there a mouse in my house? Was, you know what? My something was making this sound. So, you know, I don't know. And I'm okay. The next morning I woke up, I for an iPad that I got 2 years ago. And I haven't been using that. And this friend of mine who I've known since before we were born, my grandmothers were best friends. And her iPad was going up, and she couldn't save enough. So I said, well, I got not playing with it, because there's so much clutter. My house is smaller. So, back up a little. I woke up in the morning, and then I went, oh my God, I went over, there was nothing around, there was no dead anything, nothing in the garage. So I picked it up, and I turned around, and there in the box was the iPad.
Let's get that big one.
Somebody had
Woo!
What do you think? I said, follow up, look.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and that message.
That's amazing.
I gave it to her, her son was in town. There's only, he set it all up, she's.
Oh.
So people are, because I've been thinking about this, I'm thinking a lot about the night marches.
Yeah.
And you know, down my way, there's a trail, march.
And we do need to get to the end of service, but I invite you guys to chat about it afterwards. We do have refreshments, and I want to make sure that we have time to get to there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like all of you got to really think about what you want your story to be. And what you want this limitless possibility to be for you. I want to remind you that your mind is not locked in to anything unless you choose it to be. That your mind does not have to be a prison to the old story that we told ourselves. That it can be a portal or a spaceship or Mount Everest to whatever you want those limitless possibilities to be. So I invite you to be grateful for an old version of yourself. And I invite you to rewrite your story with courage and grace. And I invite you to seed your mind with thoughts that allow you to see that infinite possibility. I'm really excited to see what you co-create with Spirit. And so it is.
Yes.